Hello, everyone. In this video, I'm going to provide some instructions to help you use the fear of happiness scale. This video is useful particularly for inexperienced researchers such as undergraduate students who want to use the scale in their research project or some graduate students. So first, where to get the scale? To get the official version of the scale, you need to go to my website. So this is my website. You need to go to the scales page. And here, as you can see, I write here that the scales can be used for research purposes, and you don't need to email me and ask for my permission, because I already have given you the permission to use the scale for research purposes. So here you see all of our scales, and this one is fear of happiness scale. So you just download it from here. This is the official version. How can you use fear of happiness scale in your research? You just include it in your survey, collect data along with your other variables. And here I'm sharing a data set that includes the 5 items of the fear of happiness scale. So in order to use the fear of happiness in your research, you simply need to calculate a total score for fear of happiness. You can sum the 5 items, or you can average them. I prefer to average the 5 items. So it's very simple. In order to do that, you just need to click on transform, compute, and here you just give it a name. Let's call it fear of happiness, FOH. And here, so we're gonna type mean, and then send the first item space 2, and then send the last item to this box. So this code is gonna return an average of item 1 to item 5. Basically means all of the items, the 5 items, right? So this is the name of the new variable you are creating, FOH. So if I click OK, you see that a new variable is added to my data set, FOH. And this is your fear of happiness score. Then you can use it in your research. You can correlate it with other variables. You can use it as a predictor in regression. You can use it as an outcome in regression. So you don't need categories. So a question that I get from many students is that give us some information on scoring. I don't exactly know what this question means, but I guess these students are curious about some, like, for example, some thresholds. So this is score, for example, let's say 6. Everyone whose score is 6 or higher should be categorized as having fear of happiness, or everyone who is below this score doesn't have fear of happiness. It's not like that. Fear of happiness is not a diagnostic tool, so we don't have any categories. It gives you a continuous variable. It doesn't give you categories, and we don't need categories to do research with fear of happiness scale. So you just calculate the average score and use it in your research. You can use it as an outcome or as a predictor in your research. And this is how to calculate it. There is no special scoring instructions here. Fear of happiness is a personality psychology scale, is not a clinical tool. So you just need to calculate the average. However, I get this question so often, and so I assume that some people need to have some categories here. So they are curious to know which score is considered a very high score and which score is considered a very low score. So in this video, I want to give you one way to somehow create some categories here. First of all, depends on the sample that you use. It's different. In each sample, we have different categories. So I cannot give you a particular number and say that everyone whose score is higher than this number, this threshold, that person should be categorized as having high fear of happiness, because in each population, in each sample, these scores, these thresholds are different. So let me teach you one easy way to create some categories. I emphasize again that you don't need to create categories. Fear of happiness is a continuous variable, and the score of fear of happiness should be used as a continuous variable in your research. But if for any reason, I don't know, people have different reasons, maybe you need some categories, I advise against using categories, but still I teach you one way to get some categories for fear of happiness. Okay, so let's say you calculate your fear of happiness score, and now you want to categorize it. So you want to create 5 categories from low to high. How can you do that? In order to do that, you need to go to transform, rank cases. And here you choose fear of happiness, you send it to the variables box and click on rank types. You don't need to include this rank, but here click choose this option, quintiles, and make it 5. So we want to create 5 categories. Continue and okay. Here you have created a new variable called NFOH. And if you look at the label, it says percentile group of FOH. Now, this is a categorical variable you have created with 5 categories. So let's look at frequencies. So I click on Analyze Descriptive Statistics and Frequencies. I choose the new variable, send it to variables box, and click OK. Now you can see what happened. SPSS has created 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can see, in each category, we have about 20% of our sample. Not exactly 20%, about 20%. So the first category, for example, is 18.5%. The second category is 22.3%. So roughly 20% in each category. The first category is the 20% of the sample with the lowest score on fear of happiness. And in the second category, about 20% of the sample with slightly higher scores. And category 5 contains individuals, 20% of our sample with the highest fear of happiness score. So now we have 5 categories, and you can call the last category as you can see the people in the last category as people who have the highest score of fear of happiness. So I have a suggestion how to call these categories, how to label these categories. You can label the first group minimal fear of happiness, and the second group mild fear of happiness, third group moderate, fourth group high, and fifth group extreme fear of happiness. And it depends on your sample. So in each sample, we get 5 categories, and the thresholds are different. So these are this suggestion for the labels that you can use for the 5 categories. Okay, so now you have 5 categories, but still you don't know about the thresholds, right? Which score defines people who are in the last category. You need to do some extra work here. So first, I go to data and I split file. Here, you choose the new variable, the categorical variable. First, compare groups. Click on compare groups and then send the categorical variable to this box. And then click OK. Go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and then choose Descriptives. Here, choose your fear of happiness, continuous variable. Okay. And send it to the variables box and then click OK. All right. So you have your 5 categories. And the first category, you can see that in this category, the average score is 1. So only people who have chosen 1 in response to all the 5 items are here. So the lowest score is 1, the highest score is 1. Apparently, about 20% of the sample have chosen 1 in response to all of the 5 items. The second category is, so the minimum score is 1.2 and the maximum score is 1.6. Now let's look at the last category. The minimum score is 4.4 and the maximum is 7. So you can say that this is the threshold for calling someone as having extreme fear of happiness. Everyone whose score is equal or greater than 4.4 in this particular sample, we can say that that person belongs to the last group, belongs to the 20% of the sample with the highest score on fear of happiness. So to summarize, I encourage you to use fear of happiness as a continuous variable in your research, in correlation analysis, in ANOVA, in regression analysis. You don't need to have categories, but if for some reason you are interested in categorizing fear of happiness, I suggest using quintiles. So in this method, you create 5 categories. Each of them contains about 20% of the sample